This recording is part of the series on the Eucharist, and in this session I'd like to speak a little bit about the multiplication of loaves and fish. Now that's a nature miracle that we find in all four of the Gospels. In Matthew and Mark, Jesus performs this miracle 2 times. Once for Jewish people, and when the meal is finished, there are 12 baskets of fragments left over, 12 enough for the 12 tribes of Israel. Once for pagans, and when the meal is finished, the fragments left over are filling 7 baskets. 7, the perfect number, enough for everybody upon the earth. In Luke, there's only 1 multiplication. In John, there's only 1. Now, in these multiplications, one of the things that is emphasized is the role of Jesus as the Good Shepherd. That Psalm 23 is being reflected in the fact that the people sit on the green grass. Remember, in Palestine, there's not a lot of green grass lying around. But the author of all of these accounts is thinking of the psalm, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. In verdant pastures, he gives me repose." And just in case we miss the symbolism of this, immediately after that in the psalm, "Beside restful waters he leads me," after Jesus multiplies the loaves and the fish, he immediately goes for a walk on the sea. So Jesus is our good shepherd, caring for us, nourishing us, leading us into safe places. And the safest place, obviously, is the Eucharist. Well, Jesus takes the loaves and fish and he blesses them and he gives thanks. Now, in the Synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, the authors use a perfectly good word for thanks, eudokeo, and it just means to give thanks. But John's Gospel, which is the strongest emphasis on the idea that this is Eucharistic, uses the word Eucharistein. So you can't even miss the connection with the Eucharist, that Jesus is prefiguring the Eucharist. In John's Gospel also, we hear that the loaves that are brought to Jesus are barley loaves. This is a poor boy who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. Now 5 plus 2 are 7. 7 is the perfect number. So before Jesus multiplies this, it's already in some way perfect. But then he multiplies it and makes it even better. And isn't that a great symbol of us and our ministries? Whatever work we're doing in the name of Christ, we do the very best we can, and then Christ multiplies it and makes it even better. The fragments are gathered up at the end of the meal, and that's a phrase that's used in the Didache. Now, the Didache is the oldest liturgical book in the Church, dating sometime between 70 and 90 AD. And it specifically says, after you've celebrated the Eucharist, gather up the fragments. So people hearing these accounts would immediately connect it with the celebration of the Eucharist. And this multiplication of loaves and fish is connected with the miracle of manna. The idea that God fed his people with that incredible, miraculous bread in the Old Testament. Now he's nourishing the greatest hunger of our hearts, the need to be loved unconditionally with the very person of Christ, because he is the bread from heaven that we have to devour, as we hear in the Gospel of John. And that bread from heaven, as John says, is his flesh for the life of the world. And so what we see in this nature miracle is a prefiguring of the Eucharist. Now, some people will say it's not really a nature miracle. It's more of a social miracle, that Jesus shared all the food he had, and everybody said, how generous he is. Let's share all the food we have. This sounds great, but it doesn't really explain what's going on, because Jesus is changing the rules of nature. And we know this because immediately after he walks on the lake. Well, some people will say he knew where the rocks were. And my response to that is, come on. That in the Gospels, we recognize that Jesus performed miracles. Do we understand what those miracles mean? No, it's beyond our understanding. But by performing these miracles, by changing the rules of nature, Jesus is showing that he will do anything, absolutely anything, to the point of dying on the cross out of love for us.